Hello and welcome back to the Shed Geek Podcast. Here's a message from our studio sponsor. Let's be real. Running a shed business today isn't just about building great sheds. The industry is changing fast. We're all feeling the squeeze, competing for fewer buyers while expectations keep climbing. And yet, I hear from many of you that you are still juggling spreadsheets, clunky software, or disconnected systems. You're spending more time managing chaos than actually growing your business. That's why I want to talk to you about our studio sponsor, ShedPro. If you're not already using them, I really think you should check them out. ShedPro combines your 3D configurator, point of sale, RTO contracts, inventory, deliveries, and dealer tools all in one platform. They even integrate cleanly into our Shed Geek marketing solutions. From website lead to final delivery, you can quote, contract, collect payment, and schedule delivery in one clean workflow. No more double entries, no more back and forth chaos. Quoting is faster, orders are cleaner. And instead of chasing down paperwork, you're actually running your business. And if you mention Shed Geek, you'll get 25% off all setup fees. Check it out at shedpro.co/ShedGeek. Thank you, ShedPro, for being our studio sponsor, and honestly, for building something that helps the industry.
Welcome back to another episode of the Shed Geek Podcast. I'm your host, Coch, coming to you from a sunny, temperate, beautiful day here in Metropolis, Illinois. And today I'm joined by me. This is going to be my first attempt at a monologue, so please bear with me. I know that Shannon does these a couple times a year, and they're always so enthralling, his thoughts, and just kind of a live look into what's going on in the industry. And so I'm going to carry on that tradition today with a look at, I think, what I will call an ode to the Luddites, or an ode to those who are not quick to adopt. So this will be in the particular case or the particular topic of AI and what the possibilities are, but how there has been some wisdom in actually being slow to adopt some of those technologies as they bear themselves out. So if you'll stick with me and give me a shot here, I think it should be a good episode. I'm going to do my best to be entertaining for 30 or 40 minutes. So before we get rolling on that, just a few ways for you all to stay plugged in with the podcast. Of course, our call-in line, Shannon's cell phone, 618-309-3648. Our email, info@shedgeek.com. If anyone wants to reach out via email. Of course, we do have the contact forms on the website. The website itself, www.shedgeek.com. We always try and encourage participation on the Facebook page, both our own and the group pages in the industry. Shed sales professionals in particular seems to be a really great resource that continues to just offer a ton of support and a ton of insight from real industry professionals on what we are seeing day to day on the ground in the shed industry. And of course, if you have any friends in the playing community, or anyone who would like to listen to the podcast via landline, via telephone, that call-in landline number is 330-997-3055. So pass that on to them. And again, before we get rolling here, I would also just like to shout out our exclusive CRM provider partners over at Velocity 360, the exclusive CRM provider of Shed Geek Podcast and the Shed Geek Media Network. These guys just speak shed. I probably talk to Brandon and Joe once a week just about what's going on in the shed industry, what's working, how they're getting their results. They've got a fantastic relationship going on right now with ShedPro, where they're putting out some of those white papers that really discuss some of those results and go through how they're able to deliver for you. They know what works. They know how to close, and they know how to help your sales team convert more leads. That's the bottom line. and not just convert more leads, but do it in less time. Uh, I think it's fairly common in sales in general, and particularly in our industry, that many people worked for years off of yellow legal pads and spreadsheets and kind of had homemade CRMs, if you will. Um, but Velocity 360 is really offering a turnkey solution, something that is easy, straightforward, simple. They do all the training. They make sure that you are up to speed on how everything works. And this is fully configured right out of the box. Workflows, automations, reporting, um, that are all proven to work in this industry. Again, back to all of the relationships and partnerships that they have built over the last 18 months or so. They are just absolutely getting the results, and that is what matters. And they do all of it with what they call their true white glove experience, meaning that there is no hassle. They take the handoff, they move your data, they move all of your client information, your sales information over. You don't have to touch anything. A true white glove concierge service. So we appreciate those guys over there for that. Get in touch with them directly. Tell them that Shed Geek sent you, or you can reach out to Shed Geek. Click the link in the newsletter, or give us a call, and we will be happy to make that connection for you. So, having said those things, um, an ode to the Luddites. Uh, as you all know, Shannon and myself and the Shed Geek brand, everything that we do, we have a tendency to always be pushing forward, pushing for the adoption of new technologies, of new ways of doing business. I think that this bears itself out. CRM is actually a good example. It bears itself out in modern marketing services. It bears itself out in SEO and Google Business Profile optimization, in review strategy, like we've talked about with Gerald Rhodes before, um, in campaigns, right? How are you structuring your Facebook campaigns versus Google campaigns? Are you running campaigns, or are you reliant on simply posting your sheds onto Facebook Marketplace? I mean, all of these things have been um, covered thoroughly and on podcasts over the last, gosh, 2 or 3 years, even going back to really the inception of the podcast, with Shannon and Kyle, already 6 years ago now. We're in year 6, and the drumbeat of Shed Geek has always been to say, let's try these things. This is modern business. Let's catch up a little bit with the modern era. This is an old school industry, construction. It's a blue collar industry. It's an industry that is still very much based on the inventory model. Maybe that model is being updated, and maybe it is being viewed as just in time inventory and the most valuable SKUs. And we've talked about some of those things with CEOs of companies and production managers, and how that side is changing. But today, I really want to give props to those people out there who push back and who might say no. Shannon commonly says that in the shed industry, if you say you've got a good idea before the person you're talking to even hears the concept, they already say it'll never work. No reason to try it. No reason to try it. And of course, usually we're kind of saying that in a teasing way and saying, "Come on, guys, get on board here. Walk with us. Let us show you. Let us educate. Let us inform. Let us move those things forward." But specifically today, I want to talk about AI and how wise it is seeming that much of the industry has kind of pumped the brakes on that and has not been necessarily first adopters. And I think that's to their credit. AI has done so much for um, the way that we do business here. If you are in the content side of business, if you are in the even to some degree, to a pretty good degree, the if you're analyzing data, if you are looking at data sets, if you are trying to discern some straightforward patterns that have good data on them, AI does really good. Um, but there are also downsides, and these things are bearing themselves out in the broader market as we speak. You see a lot of hesitancy. You see a lot of people talking about the AI bubble bursting, because frankly, a lot of the capital that was raised for this AI expansion, for the data centers, for the GPUs, paying NVIDIA to produce all of these chips that are a new generation of chips that can handle this type of really data heavy, text heavy LLM models. And so, I think it's natural for business to business buyers to be trend followers. It's very natural for it's the safe decision to make, I guess is the way maybe I should put it. If you are if your business operates in a B2B space, so if that is those of us who are interacting with um, you know software as a service, SaaS models, those of us who are interacting with professional services, those of us who are having websites built, those of us who are engaging in SEO, all of those kind of non-consumer activities that our companies undertake, the safe bet, just sociology wise or economically, is to follow the trends. Because what you don't want to be is left behind. And that is where sometimes, our criticisms, I think, fairly come in and say, hey, this is a proven method. It gets results. You need to adopt it. In the case of CRM, that allows your salespeople to handle, gosh, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 times the leads possibly, depending on what the quality of leads are and how responsive and all that. But it is the safe decision to follow trends because, it's rare that a person loses their job because they did the same thing the competitors are doing, right? It's rare that if the whole crowd jumps on whatever the newest thing is, that anyone is really going to pay a heavy consequence for having jumped on, other than the time and money and the hours that were spent implementing whatever that solution might have been. But it's just the nature of people. It's the nature of sociology that no one wants to be the person who put up the stop sign and said, no, we will not do that. We will not do as our competition does. We will purposefully allow for that trend to play itself out, and then we will decide whether or not it's valuable. Sometimes that can really come back to bite you, because if it is a market changing event that's happening, companies can grab up market share and can move really fast. And
when it comes to building something that lasts, every detail matters. At First Choice Metals, we proudly support the shed, carport, and pole barn industries with durable, high-quality steel roof panels, siding, and trim accessories built to perform and made to last. Every product we offer is American-made, with craftsmanship and finish you can see in every panel. More builders and homeowners are choosing metal roofing and siding for a reason. It offers superior durability, a longer lifespan, and improved energy efficiency compared to traditional materials. At First Choice Metals, our mission is simple. We provide exceptional products for your building projects and deliver service you can count on. Because being your metal building component supplier means more than just making a sale. It means being there every step of the way. First Choice Metals, built for strength, backed by service.
I think that in the case of some of these technologies that we're talking about, CRM, even 3D Builder back in the day, now the real focus on speed to lead. I think there will be that focus will start to change from speed to lead to race to face. I think, the modern sales tactics will wind up being video, but I guess to circle back to the kind of original point here, across the country at this point in time, 98% of all organizations in the USA have implemented some kind of AI solution within their business. These are statistics that came out about 2 weeks ago, and I was looking them over and picked out a couple of the most interesting. 98% of all organizations have implemented some kind of AI solution within their company. Only 5% report that they have seen an effect on their bottom line. Now, I'm not saying that some of these things are not longer term ROIs, but the way that it was sold, the way that it was pitched a few years ago, and just for full transparency, I was a ChatGPT user on day number 2. I was following a podcast at the time, the All In podcast, and they talked about this. They talked about the launch, and I don't know exactly where I fell, but I would think my account is probably in the first, 100,000 or so people who started to use this technology on a regular basis. So this is not coming from a place of being a hater of AI technology, or more precisely, LLM technology. I was an early adopter, and for the type of work that I was doing at the time, and even to a degree, the type of work that we still undertake here at Shed Geek and Shed Geek Marketing regularly, it's great. It produces lots of text. It produces lots of options. It produces lots of content. I would say that for the shed industry, because there is not a whole lot of data out there in the world that is particular to sheds. There's a lot of shed content, right? There's a lot of shed information in the broad sense, but as we all know, most of the websites, most of the brochures, most of the video content that is produced by the industry in the industry, it's all kind of the same. There are very few places, and I've actually experienced this firsthand lately, as we undertake a project to start to put into place some shed standards, where we can reasonably grade, an A-rated shop versus a B-rated shop. What does quality mean? What is the craftsmanship and the materials that are required to create the floor system, a high quality floor system that won't sag, won't buckle, that is appropriate for transport, all of these things. Same with wall systems, roof systems, ventilation systems, door and window framing, right? And I've experienced this firsthand because there are not really repositories of that kind of shed knowledge. Even whenever it comes to more consumer facing things, RTO and finance and payment options, really there are some surface level explorations of what that means, but deep dive comparisons, um, cost calculators, tools that actually kind of help the consumer directly are few and far between. And so, even in what we do around here, Shed Geek Marketing and Shed Geek Podcast and the media that we put out and the newsletter and everything else, AI can be helpful to take your thoughts and put them in a structure that is well organized and makes a good argument. If you're making a good argument, tells a good story. If you're telling a narrative, but that they require heavy editing because very simply the knowledge base to truly for that LLM model to truly understand or be able to grasp or have enough data points really to put those sentences together in a way that is both truthful and insightful and rich in its content, rich in its context. Um, it just doesn't; those things are not readily available as data points in very or if they are, and I'm sure someone out there is saying, "Well, gosh, we've got so much information on our website," and you probably do. I'm not saying that you don't, but whenever that LLM is scrawling the internet for the correct answers, for the answers that make the most sense, and frankly use those words in that order, it's not really thinking. It's kind of like smushing words together in a way that seems to make the most sense as it understands, text-based language. And maybe this is a good spot to just circle back a little bit and talk about what we have been referring to as AI really is. And it's another acronym. It is they are currently LLMs. They are large language models. They 100% rely on data input. They rely on both text, numeric based um, inputs. If you don't have the data, if you don't have the richness of information, you really don't have anything with an LLM. Now, of course, the big ones, the ones that we're all using, the Claudes and the Chat GPTs and all of the kind of very popular models, they've effectively been trained on, most of the open source internet. Um, so they do have lots and lots and lots of knowledge. It's not to say that they are insufficient in many things and in well covered topics, and particularly well covered topics that have been well covered since the advent of the internet. You know, um, they're very good, and even in more historical contexts, as long as those individual events are well covered on the internet, then they're actually fairly nuanced. If they have 10,000 sources that talk about, oh gosh, I don't know, um, the Battle of Antietam, which there's probably 10 million sources that talk about things like that, then they're going to have really good insight, and they're going to be able to compile that knowledge in such a quicker way. I mean, what would take a person, weeks, months, years of their life to formulate a thesis about, what to learn or what to take away from Antietam. Um, you know, an LLM could do that and could even, kind of propose or modify thesis that it's already had as inputs easily and can make it sound great. And part of that is a little bit of the trick of AI right now. It is that it can take very mundane thoughts and it can make it sound like a term paper, a true, a doctoral thesis, um, because it is really good at language. It is really good at presentation. It is really good at narrative structure. And all those things are so valuable. Um, it's good at organizing thought. It's good at taking the disorganization and I'm having some of this right now, right? I mean, this podcast would probably be better if I would record it once and then shoot all that text into an LLM and then just read a script, right? And organize my own thoughts in a better narrative direction than me just giving my thoughts, or presenting my thoughts as they come to my mind with a brief bulleted layout here that I have next to me, right? So it is good for so many things, but I think whenever we really start to get down to what are the core values of these AI systems, these LLMs, and how is that changing the sociology, the psychology of what the actual customer, consumer, the person we want to get in front of, because that is the core of what we're trying to do here, right? We are trying to sell sheds as an industry. We're all out here, whether we're talking about SEO and CRM and Google ads and new websites and mobile optimization for websites and race to face and RTO and well, how about the premiums on that? What are we getting back as a manufacturer? All these things just add up to selling the product and how to sell it the best and how to sell it the most efficiently. And so when it comes to how does AI play into this, two of these statistics really jumped out to me. How is it being implemented and implemented effectively? So the first statistic that just grabbed right a hold of me is client-facing roles in the United States, roles that deal directly with the client, the thing that AI is supposed to do, right? The thing that it claims to do, the thing that, the advent of true AGI, artificial general intelligence, might be able to do at some point. But as of today, client-facing roles, real people talking to real clients is up 25%.
Introducing the Challenger, the revolutionary new shed mover that's taking the industry by storm. The Challenger features a touchless design, ensuring it only makes contact at the end of the skids and the bottom of the floor joists, so rest easy knowing your gable walls will remain pristine. Worried about reliability? Fear not, the Challenger is always up for the challenge and will not overturn or scuff your shed. Harness the power of innovative wireless technology. Remotely control the Challenger via your smartphone. No cell service needed. And guess what? The cell phone remote comes standard with every Challenger at no extra cost. Featuring floating forks, a 4-directional tilting mast, and sliding weight transfer, move the shed weight precisely where you need it to get ultimate traction. With self-loading capability, straight onto your truck, say goodbye to the need for a hydraulic carriage. The Challenger makes your job easy and more efficient. Choose from 2 machine sizes, 10,000 pounds and 15,000 pounds. Perfect for any job. Visit www.shedchallenger.com or email us at info@shedchallenger.com or call or text 828-220-3508 for more information. Experience the future of shed moving with the Challenger.
Right? Across the country, the last 3.5 or 4 years of AI implementation has led to more salespeople, effectively, client-facing roles. Now, that could also be, on the backside in customer service. That could be in, in technical service or those type of helplines and things like that. But client-facing roles are up 25%. I think that really said something. I think it says something about not only the psychology of business owners, but it says something about the psychology of the consumer. And it says something about the way that business owners start to really suss out and figure out what is the consumer looking for, because there are boundless, boundless um, companies out there who will today put an AI, facing, customer facing agent in between your customer and your company. I wouldn't even want to guess. There are probably 10,000 agencies, more than that, 100,000 maybe, out there in the world. Everywhere from kind of outsourced Indian tech companies to thousands and thousands right here in the U.S. who would be happy to place an agent of some kind, a voice agent, in between your customer and your company, and start to do that filtering process. Start to answer what people would call level one questions, right? Who would you like to talk to? What are you calling about? I've noticed, and actually, I kind of like this idea. I'm personally a Samsung user. I'm not an iPhone user, and I get teased plenty for still having not moved over to the iPhone. But the whole ecosystem, uh, I think it intimidated me 15 years ago whenever I was initially making these decisions, and it felt strange to buy into the device that I use to talk and text on then is going to almost require me to use those same branded devices in every other facet of life. So I have never made that jump to Apple and to iPhone, but a great feature that is now out there for Apple, they're using that very brief. It's almost like an answering service. It asks you who you are, and whenever you call someone, you're almost like leaving a short little message. And I think interpersonally, that's almost charming, right? If I am trying to get a hold of Shannon, you all know that he and I wind up having so many conversations, so many phone calls throughout the week from every side of the industry. From kind of industry insiders to all of the vendors, to the very tops of some of the manufacturing and RTO companies that just want to know what's going on out there, which is a reason why, frankly, we started doing Shed Geek Consulting, is because it just makes sense to kind of have a beat on everything and be able to advise on what the best incremental moves for growth, moves for strategy. We really have such a wide array of relationships and information that's coming in all the time. But that's a whole nother topic. But if I was trying to get a hold of Shannon, which he doesn't have this set up on his phone, but I do think it's a good idea in an interpersonal sense, two peers, two colleagues, two people who know each other, have an existing relationship, you have each other's cell phone numbers. Actually, I think psychologically that's charming, to be able to say, I know that everyone in the shed industry right now is so very busy in this spring season. I'm just going to quickly tell this AI agent, um, that I'm just checking in on whether or not we got that proposal over to XYZ customer. Um, give a short little thing, and then it gives him that summary so he knows whether or not to jump over, switch what he's doing, jump on the call. I actually think that's kind of charming, but you know, the broader the broader psychology here is that people are starting to get um very sensitive. In the beginning, in the beginning, gosh, this was only a couple years ago, that all these kind of things have started. Um, but I think that there was a lot of confusion and consternation. And, even to this day, all of us who have, older parents or grandparents, who continue to kind of get tricked by kind of AI generated reporting or AI generated images online, or, whatever that might be. Um, all of us have had that experience still to this day. But in general, the psychology and the sociology of that AI in between, when you're thinking about a customer and a company, a customer and a product, a customer and a service, people don't like it. I mean, it's just that simple. It's one thing if it's convenient, if it allows for like I was saying, if you are in a position where you are not in a hurry, you have an existing relationship with that company, you know that you're going to use them, you like the sales guys or the technicians, and you are just doing the formality of talking to this AI in between just to say, hey, this is Cord, just calling to check on what time the guys would be out to, service the HVAC system, before it really starts heating up. Good, great. Like that is not in any way ruining my experience. But for that first time customer who does not know you, who does not have a personal relationship, who has not already had a positive experience. Now, if they're calling you, very likely they have, done a little bit of research. They've entered a Google query. They've started that process. You have some amount of validation online. So you've got some reviews. Your website gives good information, blah, blah, blah. So maybe they've warmed up to the idea. Obviously they're calling you. But depending on just how relaxed that person is about their experience, this is all starting to backfire. Cold calls worked really well for a long time, right? I mean, you're talking about 60s, 70s, 80s, that sort of classic family sits around the dinner table. The first few hundred companies that start enlisting teams of people to go through notebooks by hand and call and catch someone right as they're sitting down to dinner and have a 5 or 10 minute conversation with mom or dad about whatever the cold call of the day was. Door knocking, of course, Joe Ignis always tells the story of door knocking and selling books and Bibles while he was in college. and that was effective, and in small, niche kind of ways that can still be effective today. But my point is, in general, the sociology of the consumer started to say, hey, look, this is no longer novel. This is no longer something I enjoy. I no longer enjoy just having in that case, maybe it's the attention of a company who wants to sell you something and would consider you a good customer. Or in the case of AI, and particularly AI voice agents, it's no longer novel to people. We've all heard them. We've all talked to them at this point. We've all had some kind of a throughput interaction where we are trying to get a solution, trying to get somewhere, and it just feels like frustration. So, that brings me to the second statistic. First statistic, client-facing roles up 25%. People want people. Companies are hiring people to talk directly to their customers. Non-client-facing roles, right? Roles that are data entry, roles that are design, roles that are copywriting, roles that depend on, frankly, some back end creativity and some back end, data entry analysis. The straightforward roles that I think we can kind of label as boring, not to say that design is always boring. The creative process of design is fun, right? But then the designers themselves, who then have to pull 10 different things around or not 10, 100, 500 sometimes, right? Who are making a design actually look right in whatever their photo or video editing software is. It's boring work. It's work that you can throw on your headphones and really zone into. But it's work that is done at, a certain percent of quality. No one's going to say that AI in every circumstance is producing the quality of work that a designer would by just putting their hours in. But what it allows for is for a company or an agency, or a data entry office, inside of a company, or division inside of a company, whatever that might be. What it allows for is, instead of having four designers or four data entry clerks, right? You wind up having a designer who is able to work faster, work at a higher volume, who is able to tweak when it comes to the copy side of things, and all the text that's being generated. Same thing. Like your good copywriters start to be good copy editors. You start to be able to produce a much bigger amount of content at a much faster pace. And then you just need the watchful eye that is making sure that we are, whatever it might be, staying on brand, not being offensive, saying things truthfully and honestly. All of the things that an editor already does anyway. You're just effectively taking away the most tedious parts of those processes and allowing them to be overseen by fewer people at a higher volume, at a better, a more efficient scale. So, when it comes to the shed industry, when it comes to implementation, I think that the text based, the auto replies that are happening in a text based function that are limited and that are well trained, which of course depends on how much data, how much text. This is one of these places where every company that had been using a CRM or a HubSpot already had some kind of call recording or voice to text system that was just being data based the whole time, is probably ahead of the game. Although, as we know, things change, and those calls from 4 years ago where you're offering solutions that no longer exist, better be careful, right? Or offering solutions that are now outdated. You've now in-house that, or you've now decided that's going to be a contracted service. Again, heavy editing, right? It still requires a human mind, human discernment, and human decision making, to be able to say, no, this really truly does represent our company.
Hello, shed sellers. Let's take a moment to discuss the shed customer and meeting their expectations. I remember growing up in the neighborhood where a certain percentage of the houses had well-manicured lawns and well-manicured homes. These were the type of individuals who felt it was important to purchase a well-constructed home or vehicle, or maybe equipment to help maintain the quality of the item. As shed manufacturers, we seek to provide a well-built quality shed. We want the customer to feel satisfied that their hard-earned money has been well spent on a product that will last. At LuxGuard, we believe adding high-quality rubber flooring to your line of sheds makes sense to the customer and adds value the customer can appreciate. With each year, sheds are becoming more complex. The customizations we are seeing are virtually endless. LuxGuard not only gives a complimentary aesthetic appearance for their shed, but also protects the floor from spills and keeps cleanup simple. Offer your customer the customer service they seek with LuxGuard. At LuxGuard, we are committed to delivering exceptional customer service and innovative products to help our customers achieve their goals. We strive to meet the evolving needs of the customers. To speak with one of our ready-to-serve customer product specialists, simply call 336-468-4311. To see our product and view an installation video, just visit our website at luxguard.com. LuxGuard, the floor that lasts a lifetime.
But in those limited use cases, you should do it today. in a use case where you need to produce brand copy. You need to, we're dealing with several customers right now, and when you need to produce ideas, when you need to brainstorm, when you need to take ideas that you already have, and have them put into a better context. But what these LLMs can't do is actually use discernment and decision making. Harvard study came out saying that basically, the business advice that is always given, if you're asking these LLMs for strategy, for discernment, for effectiveness when it comes to like true strategic thinking, they're just mimicking it, right? It turns into oh gosh, they had a word for it. Um, oh, now I'm not going to think of it, but it had the word slop in it. So it was similar to how people call, the AI videos and stuff, AI slop. Um, they had coined a term for that, but it's basically doing that in a corporate speak version, right? It talks about partnerships, it talks about collaboration, it advises whatever it might be, whatever that sort of vertical integration, or it says all the right things, but there's no discernment going on there. Whenever they ran a mass survey, 10,000 different business scenarios, it always landed on the same strategies, which are just pop culture strategies, right? It is just what's being talked about the most. It is not actually discerning what the advantage is, um, to owning that side of the project, to owning a company that is in line with your distribution model. It's just it's not there. Um, you know, do we ever get to artificial general intelligence? And what does that what does that mean for people, and what does that mean for our thoughts about what it means to sort of be conscious? And there are a lot of implications there, but the long and the short is nothing out there as of today is generally intelligent. Nothing can show true discernment, true consciousness, obviously, true strategic thinking. So I just want to give a round of applause to everyone in the industry who said, let's hold up. Let's pump the brakes on this. Obviously this is a big trend, and it is moving the economy. It is promising big things. But let's just see. Let's be conservative, right? Let's let our nature win out on this. And I think that by and large, those people are being proven right. Sora, the video, production app that was so popular there for a while and overwhelmed our news feeds on Facebook and the scroll on Instagram and all the apps that we like. Even YouTube, had gotten to where it was all faceless, all AI, voiceover. Um, and if you'll notice, all those things are moving back. Sora got shut down, copyright trademark issues. It's using IP that you can prove that it's using because it's directly sourcing it, from the internet, from those open sources that contain IP within them. But if you reproduce that IP, obviously, you could have lawsuits on your hands. So, Sora is out of business. The outlook for AI, that was that raised trillions and trillions of dollars and has trillions of dollars invested into the market cap of all of these publicly traded AI companies, that promised all these data centers. And, to this point, not a single giga center, one of these huge, acres, acres and acres of AI processing power that have been proposed and have been money's been raised for. I mean, the capital has changed hands. The money has gone right into the stock price. Not to mention, in some of these companies, it was that they were in investing rounds. So some of that money has gone straight into the bank account of those companies, and maybe they're still private, maybe they're still public. My point is, the projects aren't getting built because the applications that were projected, the ability to truly have a human conversation, or at least a conversation that was novel enough, that felt human enough, that had real human discernment and maybe even real human moods, right? Maybe even had a different intonation in their voice on a day, on its voice on a day whenever it had to deal with three tough customers or whatever that might be. Those kind of projected outcomes simply haven't started to add up. That's not to say they won't. I'm not sitting here saying that there's not a future where AI is integrated into, whatever it might be, 60, 70, 80, 90% of each kind of division, of a company. There's some kind of an AI backbone that is working there to make everything better, make everything more optimized, produce better content, blah, 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 all these things. But for today, the lesson to take out of AI continues to be use it where it's useful, use it for what it's good at, don't overinvest, and really the backbone of your company still needs to be you. Now, it needs to be you in a way that can be converted to data. It needs to be you in video. It needs to be you in text. It needs to be you in a guest blog post, on the Shed Geek newsletter, right? Like, it needs to be you. There needs to be lots of it, because for these models to continue to get better, they're going to continue to need to learn and learn and learn and be able to smush these words, this language that we use into better and better and more accurate little packets that we can then use, to talk to customers or whatever it might be. I was actually saying to Shannon the other day, for these language models to be what they say they are, what they could be. And they could be, if it had every piece of data that existed in every conversation, not the conversations we're having here that goes out, over the internet, into your Apple Podcast or your Spotify or, in video on YouTube, but every single conversation, if they could all be picked up on these things, if these microphones, and we know that this happens, right? There is a system that, is not openly talked about, where these apps are gathering voice to text information and then are specifically targeting consumer keywords, right? There's so many examples. I mean, I could say, oh gosh, I don't know, Pampers, diapers for babies, right? Like, I can just say it aloud, and all the apps that are running in the background here are doing some level of voice to text that is then being captured either directly by the platform, the actual app owner, or is being captured in the throughput. I mean, for me, I right this moment am not attached to the Wi-Fi here at the Shed Geek offices. So my phone is going through the wireless network. Of course, all the data that my voice data, right, is being transferred, through a wireless network. And so, there's even a potential that that there's some throughput that is being captured. It's all kind of back room type of stuff. It's a lot of different deals where at a high level, consumer reporting agencies have data deals with the apps themselves. There's probably some black hat stuff going on that then gets fed, into specialized consumer databases and allowed then and is then purchased on I guess if some of that happens on the black market, on outside of what is kind of legal or expected, at least with the protections in the US and the UK and Europe, and a lot of the Western world has those protections in place. But my point is, I guess what I'm getting around to is, I'm sorry, that was a bit of a divergence onto onto how we wind up seeing diapers, now that are going to come across my news feed or whatever when I open up Facebook. But what I'm saying is for these LLMs to truly have the answers, have the strategies, have a higher level of discernment without having the true AGI component, theoretically, it's possible we would just need to willingly feed every private, non-internet based, non-video call, non-anything, every private conversation we have, whether it's in our office, in our car, or in our house, we would just need to willingly give it to them, right? And just let them train off of every conversation, and it would start to pick up on what the real strategy is of pick a company, right? It would probably be disturbing because we would start to get answers, that in a lot of ways, cut crossways with what we kind of think of as conventional wisdom. Whenever, it lays out why XYZ company is aiming to support a dictator in another country, right? Because they advantage them. They provide enough stability through their dictatorship that cobalt or lithium can be mined. I mean, some things that would probably be a little unsettling for the big data set to be able to pull down. But I'm really just saying all of this to reinforce the fact that these programs are limited. They are limited to what you put into them. They are limited to how you train them. They are limited to not having actual discernment, which is so, so important in customer service. You have to be discerning. You have to be able to hold 50 different ideas in your mind, and decide what the best path for that customer is. And that can't be faked. Not yet. Maybe one day it will be. But these LLMs just simply do not have the capacity to do that work. So I will leave you on this thought. Be real, be genuine, use people to interact with people when it comes to your company and your sales and your customer service. Integrate it where it works. Integrate it into the back end. Integrate it into those response campaigns. If you're trying to get a customer to be responsive, if you want to have some of that AI interaction in those first couple text messages, because it just makes sense to have a limited, 3 text response or whatever that might be, just to try and get your customer going, rather than relying on your salespeople to be able to text back all of your 50 leads for that day within, 30 seconds, which is basically the expectation that we all now have. If we're having an active conversation through text messages, we think that 20 to 30 seconds is basically the amount of time that it should take someone to text back. So allow those limited use cases where it works. But, don't get out over your skis on this. And I know that I probably don't have to preach that to this industry. This industry does want to wait and see. But I guess, I wanted to, for the whole Shed Geek brand, for the whole network, we can certainly be critical sometimes, and we can certainly push people to adopt the new things, to get the new solutions, to go grab up the results that are sitting there waiting. If we would only just make the decision, if we would only just take the step. And so in this way, I just wanted to say, I wanted to eat a little crow for the Shed Geek brand. Not that we've been pushing AI or necessarily been out here just, encouraging everyone to do as much AI as possible. But I do want to eat a little crow for the narrative that we have sometimes, which is, we all just need to adopt this new stuff. We need to move to the new era. We need to get on the bandwagon. I think in this case, like I said, a round of applause, an acknowledgement to the slow movers, to the Luddites, to the those who are slow to adopt. Kudos to them, because I think that there is much wisdom in not getting too far ahead of yourself on this particular topic. So I hope you enjoyed listening to me for, oh gosh, I don't even know. It must have been 45 minutes or so. And I'm very self-conscious about all that rambling. So I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that it furthers the discussion on what is valuable in these AI tools and AI programs. I hope that it even generates some pushback. I hope that somebody out there says, hey, I've got an AI agent talking to every customer and we're closing 30% of all responsive customers. And our AI agent is doing it all. I want to hear that. And I want to hear how you did it, because my inkling would be that you had really great data to start with. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you trained it on generic data and you found the right data sets, but I want to hear that too. I want to hear that I'm wrong if I'm wrong. But in any case, I hope that you've enjoyed listening to me for a little while here, and I look very much forward to continuing this conversation. Catch me next week on another edition of the Shed Geek Podcast. And until then, give me a ring, shoot me an email, reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you all.
Thanks again, ShedPro, for being the Shed Geeks studio sponsor for 2025. If you need any more information about ShedPro or about Shed Geek, just reach out. You can reach us by email at info@shedgeek.com, or just go to our website, www.shedgeek.com, and submit a form with your information, and we'll be in contact right away. Thank you again for listening, as always, to today's episode of the Shed Geek Podcast. Thank you, and have a blessed day.